And Chip borrowed those lines on that game from your article up on CBSSports.com. You called it the greatest upset in NCAA tournament history. Perhaps the most satisfying part about it was that it was no fluke. I mean, they beat Purdue fair and square and earned their accolades. Now they get Florida Atlantic with a shot to become the first 16 to make it to the second weekend. The Owls advancing, of course, past Memphis on Friday. 15-point favorites here, guys. Tommy said it when we were sitting here, like, if you'd have told Dusty May you're going to make it past the first round game and get 15 points.
Can't claim us against the world if you're laying 15 points in the next game, gents.
Chip, break this one down for us and what you're thinking is here.
So my specific play is to go FDU team total under. And this is not really just trying to attack a hangover or trying to think that, they're not going to be able to handle the success. I do think they can handle the success. And look, they might be able to cover this number. I just think that there's a unique change that we have going from playing Purdue to playing FAU. And it's not just the lack of having a 7-4 National Player of the Year frontrunner. Because one thing that Purdue has really struggled with is it's not a very deep team. And so I look at FAU, a team that runs 8-9 deep, a team that's very athletic, and I just think that they're going to be able to really stifle this FDU offense, and they're going to be able to continue to bring in fresh bodies. And when you come off of, yes, the human side, the exhaustion, the celebration, the elation of being able to take down Purdue, now you've got to go up against this Owls team that is going to bring wave after wave. I mean, it's like hockey line changes out there with Dusty May sometimes, and that's where I think the fatigue factor might impact the jump shots, might impact the way that FDU wants to slow things down, even though they do like to play up tempo to make up their size disadvantage. So I look at FDU. I don't want to touch this big old spread because they might really be having something special. But if FDU does cover this number or even make history and take down FAU, I don't think it's a high-scoring game, so I'm going to go team total under for the Knights.
And Kenny, I mean, using Chip's parlance, I mean, that is a lot of daggone points for this game. So are you looking at that, or are you also looking total here?
Yeah, my numbers were a lot higher on the game, actually. One of the top casinos here in Vegas opened this game 11, and it was bet up to 15. I made the game 18. I think that's where the number figures should be talent-wise from team A to team B. But I don't lay that many points in this type of basketball game. I'm looking for underdogs that have a chance to win. So I'm going to pass the side here. I'm going to go to the total and talk about Tobin Anderson, the head coach at FDU. He was a high school coach the last 9 or 10 years at St. Thomas Aquinas, 20 miles north of Manhattan. To be able to do what he's done, they won 4 games last year. 4 games, and they've won 21 this year. You don't see too many high school coaches come in and are that successful right away, even though it's a small program. But he did have some D1 assistant coaching experience, which helps. But he improved this offense almost 14 points per game on 100 possessions, and that's where they're good at. You know what? It wasn't a team that we know in the day and age of COVID, there's a lot of teams out there with a lot of 6-year seniors. His team ranked 354 in D1 experience. They had no experience even on this basketball team. They won 4 games last year. They're supposed to win 6 this year. So this guy does a really good job, and it's all offense because there is no defense in this team. They didn't play defense against Purdue. They just packed the zone in, and they said, go ahead and shoot threes. We're going to get the rebounds. And if you hit threes, you're going to beat us, and that's what would have happened. So I don't think they can stop Florida Atlantic in this game. I think Florida Atlantic wants to run and get up and down, and I think FDU will be able to score because they know how to. And Florida Atlantic's not going to have to play defense because they're going to be up 15, 20 points the entire game.
Guys, before we get to our next game, I do have a follow-up because I'm curious to get both of your thoughts. And Kenny, I'll start with you because you talk about numbers and ratings and where your number is compared to odds makers. We're starting to see parity. There's no doubt about college basketball, right? And Jeremy, you brought up the point about Fairleigh Dickinson being one of the biggest upsets. From a point spread perspective, it was the biggest, bigger than UMBC, which was catching 20, Norfolk State catching 21 against Mizzou back in 2012. Kenny, we're seeing these lines a little bit tighter, even a 1 versus 16 or 2 versus 15. We used to see some high 20s or 30 points or more type spreads, and even Purdue was just a 23.5 point favorite there. What do you make of what we're seeing this tournament and potentially moving forward here with the parity we're seeing in basketball?
Yeah, it's the trend has been outstanding. It's just there's more talent. I think there's more talent in every sport. You see it 20 years ago, freshmen didn't play. They had a hard time, cracking lineups in college sports. But now freshmen are able to come in and be dominating players like a Brandon Miller, one of the best players in the country. And you don't very rarely saw that in the past, maybe a Magic Johnson, but it's more prevalent now, and it's going to continue to go that way because kids now in lower, club ball, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they're now preparing to go to college and play college athletics to be a professional athlete. More and more people are doing that. So that's why we're seeing the athleticism and the parity in all sports is getting better. It's amazing with 363 basketball teams that there is this much parity in college hoops, but there really is.
Yeah, I'll just stick with the FDU example here as one part of this, because you come in and in your first year, you're able to have one of the biggest turnarounds year over year in all of Division I that we've seen in the last 2 years. But what is a big piece of that? We saw that Tobin Anderson brought 3 players from his Division II St. Thomas Aquinas team, and they were able to transfer into FDU. And those 3 players accounted for 39 points, more than half of the team's total in the win against Purdue. I look at the example of Kansas State, a team that's going to be trying to get into the Sweet 16. First-year head coach Jerome Tang, he's able to utilize the transfer portal to be able to shore things up. Now, from a personnel perspective, whether you're in the mid-majors or the major conferences, you are able to, because of the transfer portal and the freedom of movement, you're able to plug holes. You're not going to be lost. And I think that 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you had a weakness, you just had to accept that it was a weakness, and you had to find ways to adjust it. And if you got in a poor matchup, it was going to go sideways. I just think that every team is a little bit better. Yes, Kenny's 100% on that in all sports. They are trained a little bit better. They're more skilled by the time they get to this point. But also from the way that rosters are built and the way that coaches go out there and recruit, not just high schools, but also in the transfer portal, the teams are just better and a little bit more well-rounded with less weaknesses.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.